Everybody, welcome to Visible Kindness. Today I have Mary Boza Crimmins with me, and I know I keep saying this every single time because I'm very fortunate and blessed to have incredible people on the show. And I've been looking forward to talking to Mary for a while now. Once I saw what she's doing and who she is, and she but she booked to be on the podcast, and it's going to be very good because I love what she's doing. I love who she is. She's making a huge impact on many different levels, which we'll talk about today. And as usual, I'm probably going to get some mental health therapy from her because I get it from all my guests, and I hope you do too. What she does is she helps organizations and individuals within writing, editing, research, and creating courses. She launches a Life's Moment and Seasons, which is a guided autobiography course. I think that's going to be very interesting. I would love to hear some information on that as we go. And she's doing it this spring. So we're in the spring right now, Mary. So I can't wait to hear what's happening. And she's the author of a book called Taking the Holy Spirit to Work. And I like what she said in a quote. She said, one of the biggest similarities between teaching middle school and my current profession as a writer, editor, and researcher is the opportunity to interact with interesting, engaging people. And with that, I'd like to introduce you. Mary, nice to have you here. And
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you.
Oh, thank you, Ed. I actually just came from a volunteer situation where I was back in the classroom with high school juniors, talking to them about how to write their essays. So yeah, I love teaching and everything, and I'm so thankful for you having me on the show. But that's exactly what I do, though, is I'm taking my teacher hat that I did before with the writing, the editing, helping people reach their goals, and I'm doing it now with organizations and businesses.
I love that. What do you just like right off the top of my head? I think what's it like going into the school system today? Because I think when I was in school, it was actually for me it was not good, but it's a very different world we live in now. Do you notice things differently now than before?
Well, I just I was in the second largest public high school in Orange County, Florida, for my last 2 years of teaching, and so that. I stopped teaching in 2021, I believe. So things haven't changed too much. So I was just the school I visited this morning was pretty much all African American school, public school, all African American kids. I mean, there were some other ethnicities and races represented, but for the most part, it's a black school. And I have to say, what shocked me was that. Like the school setup, the whole way they set up the day is still the same way it was when I was in high school back in the late 70s and early 80s. I was like, seriously, let's change this up some. But I'm used to the kids already because I was with them, but the biggest difference for me in teaching over the 28 years of span in teaching was the cell phone. The changes that came apart because of the cell phone. Yeah. So that's
Wow,
the big difference that I saw. Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
I've thought about that a lot and talked about it because I remember. I mean, I was watching. I can't remember what I was watching. See, that's a brain surgery thing. I can't remember what I was watching. It was recent, but it was when we went to school, even the computers weren't even invented yet. Computers weren't invented, cell phones weren't invented, and telephones with answering machines. Were you there? They weren't even there. You couldn't out in Canada. There was no answering machines to leave a message. Nothing to communicate. And I'm so grateful that I lived in that time. I would not want to be. I would not want to be in any grade of school, whether it's elementary or middle school or college, with just everything the way it is today. I find it so complicated, just even understanding what these young people are going through when they can't relate to us, what we went through.
Yeah.
And it's very different. And I feel compelled to take how we grew up and bring it into their lives in a sense when it comes to relationships and school and life. Because you were teaching for 28 years.
Yeah.
So you must have just slowly seen this shift over time.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I first started teaching, it was the blackboard and still that whole, take the erasers and bang out the dust.
Right.
And then it
Yes.
switched to the whiteboards and it switched to smart boards. But and there was the biggest shifts at first were the shifts in parenting. That was the biggest shifts where you got to the helicopter parents. And then there was that other shift of not not so much the digital world, but that was a shift. But um, for me in high school, what was that they didn't quite have the rules in place yet, and so the cell phones were always a distractor. I think
Oh
there's a
yeah.
lot.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah, so there's a lot of, at least in in our area now, they're really, really cracking down and doing a really good job, from what I've heard, of the cell phone not being, an extra part of the student's body. So it was just one more, you have to pick and choose your battles, and you overlook a lot because you want to make sure that they learn and they feel comfortable with you. But the cell phone, it was a hard battle because, for these kids, I mean, six, seven, eight, $900 for this item, it's
It's a
more,
lot of money.
yeah, a lot of money, and a lot of the kids come from situations where, that's their most valuable item that in the household, and it was tough. But again, I've heard that they've made changes and they needed to, because we really don't have to have cell phones. The kids don't need the cell phones in the classroom. They don't need them at school, So, yeah, but I like the fact that you and I have lived both in the analog world and the digital world, because I
Oh
think that
yes.
gives us a great advantage, because we can see the way that do things quicker that aren't necessarily digital, and so I think
I
we have
mean,
a good
I
advantage.
like the fact that there's never any fear of things going on.
Yeah.
My sister and I, we walked 1 mile to school, 1 mile
Yeah.
back, and we play outside when it's time for dinner. It was like one of our parents would stand on the door step and like they'd scream our names for dinner, and we come running home for dinner. And then as you grow, different stages in your life, it's like you be back before the street lights go off, or be back by a certain
Exactly.
time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's really great. And shag carpets. I'm really going in a really weird direction. Shag carpets and what was on TV. Oh my gosh, Swiss Family Robinson. Do you remember that?
I don't remember that at all. Maybe that was
Or
a
Gilligan's
Canadian thing. I
Island?
don't know. I don't remember that.
Okay, I'm
I
going.
grew up on, I grew up on All in the Family and Happy Days,
Yes,
and
yes.
and that,
Hilarious.
but yeah, I think that's also, speaks to a lot about the necessity to have safe neighborhoods, where we can feel our kids feel like they can go outside and play, and parents feel safe having them go outside. I'm just very fortunate that I live in a part of a small neighborhood, and the kids are always outside.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
nice.
so we're very fortunate with where we live, but I'm sure there's other parts of Orlando where you're not going to get that. As in, I guess, any city, whether it's Denver or wherever it is, But
Yes.
yeah,
And
but
so you're still teaching, yes? Are you still teaching? No,
I'm
you
still.
were a teacher. You're not anymore.
Yeah, yeah. I'm still a teacher, because I mean, because you can't take, you can take me out of the classroom, but I'm not a classroom teacher. But I do use my skills. I do some volunteer work, and I just, like I said, I'm a teacher. I want to help people reach their goals. That's what I do. I mean, that's what I've done. That's what I was doing for 28 years in the classroom, and that's what I do now with my work. And yeah.
So you have, I'm glad. So I always feel like when I have my guests on, it's like me having coffee with you, and I'm not even thinking of the audience because I'm so interested in people. So you have an organization called Crimson Communications.
Yeah, so it's Crimmins Communications, and
Crimmins.
yeah, so that's the my business, and like you said earlier, I'm writing for people, I'm doing research, I'm creating online courses, and then I just offered the new service that you alluded to, which is I changed the name actually to make it a little bit easier. It's Seasons and Moments, life stories, because The other name was a little bit too complicated, but I just last week finished my course, and I'm a certified Buren guided autobiography teacher,
Oh my
instructor.
gosh.
And that was a pretty intense, good course. And I'm glad
I'll
I took it.
bet.
I feel like, yeah. And so I'm really excited about offering this course to people so that they can start writing their stories and doing it in a setting that's very safe, that it's non-judgmental, and so, like you said, I'm going to be launching it soon. I'm still getting my ducks in a row, but I just have to make sure that I um, don't spend too much planning and start doing the executing.
Yes, no, I do. I do.
Yeah,
I've got
yeah, yeah,
ADHD and I'm everywhere doing too much.
yeah.
So if you were studied and worked in autobiography, what's the difference? What's the difference between the autobiography and a memoir? And on top of that, do you do memoirs as well?
Yeah. So, for the course, there's no difference. It's whatever you want it to be. I mean, I guess, historically, an autobiography was born, died, and
Here's
almost
everything that happened.
chronological. And memoir is more often thought of more of a specific moment in time. So, for example, somebody may be writing a memoir of their experience being a sergeant in Afghanistan, their memoir. But so often you have that moment in time along with other aspects of their story. So autobiography and memoir kind of the lines are often blurred,
Sure. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
because
the guy who wrote, I shouldn't say the guy, I have a problem remembering. He was one of the actors in, um,
oh, I think I know who you're talking about because Matthew Perry in
yes,
Friends.
yes. And
Yeah,
I read
yeah.
his book, actually. I read his book 3 times, as a matter of fact.
Uh-huh.
It is so well written. I mean, it is spectacular. The prologue and the first 2 paragraphs in the first chapter are just
Right,
really well written, and that would definitely be a memoir because he does go over his whole life kind of, but it's
right.
on his struggles with alcohol and drugs,
Yeah,
and unbelievable that he passed away from that and it wasn't his fault. Yeah, an incredible story, so sad. Yeah, but I was just curious if there was a difference in that with what you took. So that's very exciting.
yeah.
When you're doing uh, the type of writing you're doing for other people is called.
Oh, it just depends. For example, right now, I just finished ghostwriting a book for someone, and now I'm doing the project managing of it, helping her get it launched. And for another person, I'm developmentally editing it, but I'm also writing the end of chapter sections, which are the questions for it. So my writing just depends. Some of my writing is sort of I don't want to say technical, and like I'm not like telling people how to, build a nuclear power plant, but technical in, for example, creating a survey for a client, and then putting that survey out and then analyzing what comes back and putting a report. So it's all over the place. You know, it's more about taking, what I can do and doing it for other people. And if I can't do it, I'll help them find somebody who can. But it's more content writing than it is, say, than say, I guess, I'm not doing social media. I'm not,
Right.
not doing like that sort of what I would look at more, you know, um, copywriting sort of thing, Yeah. So it just depends. And that's what I love about it. It's like teaching. Every single day is different. And I love that.
Yeah, I relate to that on many levels.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, because I'm very curious about this, Life's Moments and Seasons, a guided autobiography course. So if you're launching that, it sounds to me like that's something that you took. That was what you took. You learned that, and now you're launching that. Is that what I understand?
Basically, I talk to people, Ed, and it's, a lot of people, and they have these stories, but when it comes to like a ghostwriter, ghostwriter writing and writing a book is pretty much out of the financial range of many people, but they still have great stories that maybe they don't want to put out on Amazon, but they want to put it out there for themselves or for their loved ones or for their, for their grandchildren and great grandchildren. And I was just had so much of those conversations. So I started to develop my own course, based on my experience as a writer and as a teacher. And then I tripped over this, the guided autobiography course by listening to a podcast. And so I contacted them and we have a course coming up. So what I'm doing is I'm taking elements of what I was thinking about already and putting together with their 40 years of research. And then I've recently changed the name because it was such a mouthful to Life, Seasons, and Moments because no, I didn't even get that right. But I believe that life is lived in seasons and moments. So it's seasons and moments, life stories is what the course is. And actually it's I have 3 different, courses that people can take individually or they can take in order. But it's going to be, on Zoom, and I'm going to try to do some in person here in the Central Florida area as well. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. What's that?
In person for some of them would be nice. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and nice for me as well. I mean, I think that on the Zoom is going to work out really great because it's the way I took the course. But it's fun to get out sometimes too. So
yes,
yeah,
totally relate to that. This is my world a little bit too much.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious about the book, Taking the Holy Spirit to Work. That's not out yet, is it?
Yeah, actually, it came out I'm looking at the calendar here. It came out late 2023, and fall of 2023, and
What is your website? Like, you must have a website. I couldn't find it.
Yeah, my website is CrimminsCommunications.com.
Christmas, like Santa Claus Christmas?
No, Crimmins. Yeah, so CRIMMINS. Communications .com.
Okay.
And and then I have and so the life story.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I saw this and I was looking at it. Sorry about that. Yes.
So that's okay.
Fantastic.
No,
Fantastic.
Yes,
everybody, you need to take a look at her website. She is like loaded with quality offerings to help people. I'm very interested myself. So interesting.
Thank you.
So your book did go out.
Yeah, my book went out. I do have a website for the book as well, but it's you got to figure out where you're going to focus your energy and everything. So I'm kind of guiding people towards that, which has access to the book as well on there. But so I always wanted to write a book, and I started 4 different books, and then I decided I was going to write a book. And one morning I was journaling, and I was journaling a lot about the Holy Spirit. And then later that morning, I met with a woman that I was doing some writing coaching with, who happened to be a Christian. And so I said, "Hey, can you read what I journaled this morning?" And she's like, "Oh, wow." And she was so encouraging because I was already thinking, wow, I think what I wrote is the beginning of a book. And she was very encouraging about it. And so I decided I'm going to keep going with this. And so as I was writing, it was just like, to God be the glory, to God be the glory. I'm just, trying to do this,
Sounds like a good title.
Yeah. And so I'm glad I finished it because I think it's a good example for my now 3 grandchildren, in the future, but the genesis of it was I was starting to write a book. It wasn't that book. And meeting with her that morning sent me in the direction of writing it.
So when it comes to, I always like to talk to my guests about how things are going with what they're launching. And one of your major goals was to getting your course launched, which is launched.
No, the course hasn't launched yet. I actually am working on getting it up on Eventbrite.
Yeah.
And I'm working on getting, my emails out and a couple of videos made and everything. So I'm hoping that the first course cycle will start in May.
Nice.
But I have to think about the fact that I'm on the East Coast. So that's like, okay, if it's 7:00 here, what time is it in Colorado? So I'm trying to work all that out where I have more than one option so that I can get people from the West Coast as well in the course. Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
relate. I relate to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just get
Uh,
very confused sometimes about the
oh,
times
I
that
know. And then
so
actually, just before this call, I was talking to my mentor in the UK, and it was
oh
8 a.m. for
no.
me, and it was in the evening for him. So we both
Yeah.
felt weird because he was ready to go to bed, and I was ready to get started. But it's
Yeah.
nice that we can do that in this day and age.
It is. It
Yeah.
definitely is. Yeah.
Another question I like to ask people because it involves kindness is all the work we do is there's kindness that's involved in what we do. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're the Nike Corporation, Amazon, every company has brought kindness into what they're doing. If they haven't, they're the mafia. I don't know who else it is.
Yeah.
And when I think of any company, I can always think of what I consider to be kindness that is just incredible, that helps them. And there is no perfect company for sure, because there is no perfect people. But I always like to ask, how does kindness make a difference in what you're doing and yeah, I'm just going to leave it like that when it comes to your business or what you're executing. Do you think about it and what kind of a difference is it making, or do you want it to make?
Oh goodness. Yeah. I'd have to say, that whole, the gratitude, because, when I first started, and even today, my clients have all come from word of mouth. And they've either been people I've known in the past or people who knew me and they recommended me. And I just so thankful for people to think of me with that much esteem where they recommend me. And I think that is incredibly kind. So I have sort of, operated on that kindness factor of it coming to me. And in so doing, though, just having to make sure that I am very contemplative, very, very focused on the fact that there's a lot of kindness out there for me to be grateful for. And there's quid pro quo, you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, or there's pay it forward. And I'm a pay it forward person. That whole quid pro quo feels very transactional. Pay it forward is more relational. So just trying to think about how do I pay it forward. So I pay it forward either through a little bit of the volunteer work, like I did this morning with the two classes at the public high school regarding writing their college essays, or paying it forward just in the fact that I always want to, regardless of what I do, Ed, and this has always been sort of my mantra, even when I was teaching, is to go above and beyond.
Yes.
Go above and
Yeah.
beyond. And to try to connect people as well. If I meet somebody and I think about them, like you and I mean, we kind of were connected through Jerry Dugan because because you were,
I was
'cause
wondering.
you-
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, and he's such a kind person.
I
And
know.
and then in seeing you and him together in whatever it was posted or something, it had to have been posted. It was like, oh my gosh, I mean, this is another guy that puts off this great vibe like Ed does. And I think it's just that, that whole sphere of just being really, really conscientious about the fact that being kind is a whole different level than being nice.
Oh yeah, it
Two different
absolutely
things.
is.
They're two different things. Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's really made a huge difference in my life the last few years. That's for sure. And I'm so curious about what God wants to do because it's strangely, it's really all I want to do every day. I want to do something kind somewhere, even if it's
Yeah.
small, whatever. I'm always thinking about that. As a matter of fact, I'm just looking at this. I bought this deck of cards, and on this deck of cards, in big letters, it says, "You are capable of amazing things." It's nice, it's gonna.
Oh, look at that. Let me see the backside of it.
And then the back,
Uh-huh.
it has a rough, like you couldn't write on the front, but you can write on the back. And it says on this one here, it says, spread kindness and inspire others around the world with one card. I need to have better glasses. And then it says, write your name, location, and social media handle, and then pass it on. Hashtag kind Spire cards. So what I'm
Oh,
what I'm
very
doing is
cool.
I may put contact information for me on there. I may not, but
Uh-huh.
I'll write something like to them. Have an amazing day. And there's tons of them. There's like your smile is
Yeah,
contagious. It goes on and on and on. And I just like to hand them out and just make someone's day. There's so many ways we can be kind, and even those are small things. You don't know
mhm,
how big it's going to be in their lives. You just don't
yeah,
know. And I always talk about the butterfly effect. That it's going to have an effect that you may or may not ever see the effects of what that is.
right, right.
I just was uh, it was very interesting in my career as a trusted advisor for Fortune 500 companies. It was very interesting working with such high level management of those that had kindness and those that didn't. Now you can be a
Yeah.
hardcore leader with kindness, and you can be a hardcore leader because you need to be. When I say hardcore, if you're running $1 billion business,
Right, right.
you got to know what's going on. And I find it
Exactly.
interesting that for the most part in Europe they were kinder than in the U.S. And it was very, very interesting. I mean, it was like really, really obvious. One of the pharmaceutical companies I was working for, it had something like $50 billion in revenue. Met the CIO. He's like, he rode his bike to work, which I don't know. I know no CIOs that ride their bike to work. We all went out for dinner together, and he was just very cordial, very kind, and very nice. And let's all work together. I'm like, wow, that has never happened in the U.S. In the U.S., it's like, okay, first of all, who is this guy, right? Who is this guy? Like, does he know what he's talking about? And then
Yeah.
it's hardcore, and it's interesting. But if I found if I could break through that and really be a trusted advisor, because that word
Mhm.
trusted advisor, if you can prove that to someone, then they will trust you, and then
Right.
kindness comes in, and I enjoy that very much. Often I would sit down with leaders at that level in a closed door meeting, and I would say, look, I'm just going to be honest with you. Obviously, I'm here because there's like a major problem, and I'm here to figure out what it is. But you know what? I like to find out, like, from a leadership level, a lot of things make big differences in the problems that companies have. So
Yeah.
let me ask you a question that will go nowhere, right? It's going to go nowhere. It will help me help you. And I would ask questions like, are you planning on doing it like a lateral move in this company, or an upward move, or moving out? And things happen when you have plans like that can
Right.
be a distress. And if that's the case, let me know. I don't need to know the details, but it helps me to understand the motivation behind how you're leading, to not only help you fix the problem that you're facing, but also help you move forward with what you're wanting to do on a personal
Yeah.
level. And they loved that I would help you on a personal level with
Hmm.
fixing what's in your company. And that was an absolute act of kindness that they never expected. And it was
Right.
pretty cool. It was pretty cool. We need the world needs more.
Yeah. I like that concept of figuring out where they're going and then figuring out how to help them get there. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's so needed. It's so needed today. Let me think here, because we're getting close to the end of the show, and I like doing. I have uh I like having repeat shows because I like talking a lot. I was doing this for an hour at a time when I first started, but typically people like 30 minutes and
Yeah,
whatnot.
definitely. Yeah.
And so doing two episodes is fine, or I've done episodes where it's been an hour and I do part one, part two, and at the end of part one, it's like they definitely want to hear part two the way I leave it off. Um, but if if you if you could think of, I like to ask this question. It's a huge interesting question because it can have so many different answers. Kindness, like I said, it can be something very small. It can be something very big, and it is so needed in our culture today. What do you think of, like, today? Um, how kindness, like, that you want to do in your life, and it can be something today, or it could be something this week. It could be something that you're planned, something where kindness is you're bringing into what you're doing. Like I said, on any level, what would that be? If you could share that with us.
Okay. So the question is, if I can bring kindness in on any level, what would it be?
Yeah, so it could be something personal, like you're going to get your nails done, and you're planning on giving the gal who does your nails a huge bone or a huge tip, or it could be something to do with your business. It could be something to do with
Yeah.
somebody you know. Yeah, I don't care what it is,
Yeah.
but something that drives you today or this week when it comes to kindness.
I think one of the things is, with kindness is, with people on social media, you can do the like, and or the emoji, and I that's great. You're engaging somehow, but I really look at it as trying to be even more thoughtful in it, and actually reading the post and then commenting specifically on what I read. And I'd love to see. So I try to do that. That's the kindness act that I try to do. And I'd love to see more people doing that, of really making social media social and engaging and connecting rather than just the scrolling thing. But also through my writing, I have a Substack newsletter called Seasons and Moments. That through my writing, I'm really want to encourage people, especially those that are getting older, 50 plus and everything, to live their best life. And part of living your best life is understanding, is understanding kindness and putting it out there. Is that that whole stereotype of the grumpy old man, or the older woman with no filter, that she thinks she can say everything. Let's dispel all that, and let's you know show our kindness, not try to be the wisest person in the room, but make it so that people are attracted to see, what wisdom that we do have, to share. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying. And I think that's something that I have been working. I mean, I work into my life every day now, and it'll be a never ending task. And we need it so much today. I really like how you said when responding or commenting or doing something in social media, of actually bringing some warmth into it, showing that you read what somebody posted,
Yeah.
and gave some kindness into that in a response. And even though it's on social media, it's if you're the person receiving it, it grabs you. It's like, wow, this person was, quite very kind. And quite often when people are like that to me, I'll reach out and on a Facebook Messenger, if it's Facebook Messenger, and I'll just say, I leave verbal messages. I just say, thank you so much for the comment you left. You really made my day. And then I know that makes their day because I was kind back to them with what they
Yeah.
did. So it's yeah, that's good. Well, this
Uh,
was really, really nice. I really love what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
I would love to get your book, and I'm very curious about what about the way you're moving forward with your when it comes to writing in your courses. And I really appreciate you coming on the show. I mean, it was great. The schedule
You.
went like wacko for some reason. Calendly went weird on me for some reason. It deleted a whole bunch of my events. I'm like, what? Because it says Ed deleted this, Ed deleted that, and I'm like, what? That's not very kind. And
Yeah.
I had to call Calendly.
Algorithms. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Calendly problem. They apologized for it,
Oh
but
my goodness.
really great.
Yeah.
And all the best to you and what you're doing. I love what
Thank
you're doing.
you.
I really appreciate you spending time to come with us today.
Thank you. Well, if you're ever my way in Orlando, please look me up, and I'll do the same when I'm over in, if ever over in, in Denver. But
Absolutely.
I'd
Would
love
love
to
that.
meet you in person. But I love your vibe. I love what you're doing, and God
Oh,
bless
thank
you.
you. Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, so yeah, keep it up. Thank you so much, Ed.